Hello everybody, this is the What Do You Say podcast brought to you by BRITA. We are talking to colleagues and external speakers about what they've got to say on topics like digital transformation, leadership, way of working, as well as industry and company news. Our today's topic on International Women's Day is empowering women in leadership, starring our BRITA colleagues and female leaders, Lieve and Inoshika, as well as our coach and psychologist and expert on women leadership, Marianna. Tell us in the comments, what do you say?
Is this on? Am I in the right podcast?
Well, I can hear you, so I guess so.
Okay, so, well, it's been a while since we hosted our last internal BRITA podcast, and I'm pretty excited to move forward. So, Liv, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I can only agree. Excited, a bit nervous, I must admit, moving from the listeners to the speaker's role. So bear with me, but I guess we'll go with learning by doing, right?
Sure, most definitely. So before getting started with the episode, give us a quick introduction. Why are you here? Why now? What's happening?
So, well, some of the listeners of our BRITA family will probably remember your voice and the former BRITA Next podcast covering topics and facts around digital transformation. With our internal leadership program, BOLD, we are getting sponsored with cross-function projects from the organization every year. And one of them this year is being to evolve the podcast in itself into a wider BRITA network. So we are a team of 4 starting today with a new podcast series.
Nice, I love it. And as I see, you already given the facelift, right?
Yes, we have. The BRITA Next podcast was named after the Transformation Initiative, and it was handled by Sasha, Steph, and you. And as we're now taking it over and opening up the range of topics, we have rebranded it a little. So that's how What Do You Say it was born.
What do you say? All right.
So we want to know what our guest speakers have to say on different topics. As we are from BRITA and we are big water lovers, it has gotten us to What Do You Say?
I like it. I love it. That's nice. Okay, so one last question before actually starting. So who are you? Who is in the team? Who's doing like the nitty-gritty stuff in the background?
So I'm Liv. I'm 26 years old and I'm with BRITA now for 5 years. I started in our consumer online shop team and I've moved to the professional filter segment last year to work in sales development. And together with Isabel, Magda and Steven, I'm part of the BRITA BOLD leadership program and also of this year's podcast team. And the others are working behind the scenes today, but I would definitely drag them into the spotlights in the coming
Yes, you
podcast.
Should do that. You should do that. Okay, so no more questions for the time being. I'll pop out and hand over the podcast to the team. So the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. So as mentioned before, our podcast today is celebrating women. To be precise, we will tackle the topic of empowering women in leadership. And I'm not alone because I've invited 3 very interesting guests, Inoshika, Marianna and Lieve. Welcome to our first episode of What Do You Say? Hi, Lieve.
Hi, Lieve.
Hi, Lieve. So before jumping right into our questions, I would like to hand over to you for some introduction. Inoshika.
Hi, I'm Inoshika, one of the team leaders of service delivery in the UK and at Festival BOLD. A bit about myself: I was born and bred in Sri Lanka and moved to England 2 years ago. I'm a qualified management accountant and always had the passion towards entrepreneurship and started my own company 6 years ago while I was employed as a senior manager in one of the conglomerates in Sri Lanka. Part-time, I hosted a couple of TV shows about women empowerment and also assumed the role of a lecturer in one of the universities. So I left everything aside, moved to UK, started from scratch, and now waiting to see what the future holds.
Very nice. So, Lieve, maybe you want to go next.
Yes, so I am Lieve. I am the managing director for BRITA Benelux since August 2020. In fact, I am in leadership roles since my mid-30s, so quite some experience already. And I'm very happy that I can execute this leadership experience both in Belgium and in the Netherlands. I really like to work in those 2 countries. I live in Belgium, however, and I have the Belgian nationality. But I'm really a big fan of working in the Netherlands, where the spirit is more, let's say, liberal and a very commercial mindset. And that's what I like.
And you also have a connection to BOLD, right? You're a mentor to one of our Boldies.
Yes, indeed. So I have been a mentor for one of the Boldies since 2 years for now, and I'm really a big fan of the program.
Nice. And our third guest, Marianna, you also have a link to BOLD, right?
Yes, absolutely. So I've been the leadership trainer for the Boldies the last few years. And yeah, I've loved my work with the Boldies. They're super smart and super dedicated. And I have to say, when I go to other companies, I always talk about the Boldies. I have to be honest here. So I'm also a psychotherapist in my training, a coach and a leadership development expert with a soft spot and an expertise for women in leadership. And actually now in my old age, I'm hopefully finishing up my PhD at the Birkbeck, University of London, on women and leadership, and I'm investigating the internal glass ceiling. Well, finally, I'm Greek, probably you can tell from my accent, and I am living in London for the last, 12 years probably.
So thanks for joining today. I would say it's a perfect fit for our podcast and today's topic. Jumping right in, what would you say to young women and especially young leader taking on leadership roles?
I have lots to say, actually. Okay, so one is do lots and varied training. So get your hands on every training that's possible and be very curious about things. The other thing is to be bold and ask to be involved in difficult and challenging and high visibility projects early on. As much of that as possible when you come on. Do not limit yourself in functional or helper roles. So if there's something that is more strategic, etc., go for it. Again, as earlier as possible. Okay. Take risks. Okay, this is very important because there is some research that says that women are not that big lovers of risk. So do take risks. I would say also pair up with other women. So pair up and group with other women as well and help each other. This is very, very important because from my research, many women realize this at a much later stage and they could have been benefiting early on. And you need to have also, don't compete with other women. Okay, we don't need competition from ourselves as well. It's important to have an abundance mentality. So to have, even if there's not enough to go around, have this mentality that there is enough to go around. That's going to help you a lot. You need to build and create solid networks. Your job won't just speak for itself. We all think, especially women, think that our very good job will speak for itself. It won't. Okay, so you need the networks. You also need to be savvy and discerning regarding politics. And always ask for what you want. You don't get if you don't ask. That's very important. Finally, get mentoring. However, don't just limit yourself to mentoring because mentoring is great and it can really help you when it comes from a more experienced person. It can really, really help you. However, again, research shows that women are mentored to death instead of being given projects and opportunities. And of course, if you get stuck somewhere, either seek other people who know things or even get coaching if you need to. Some women do benefit a lot for a period of time to have specialized coaching and they move on. But reach out to others, ask questions. That's what I would say.
A lot of good points. One that stood out to me was the point of ask for what you want. Is there anything that you could give an advice on how to get quick-wittedness in difficult conversations, for example, to just speak up for yourself? Is there anything that you would like to give it advice on?
Well, that's a difficult one because it depends on the personality as well and the seniority that you have, right? So there are some people who are more introverted and they're not gonna just jump and ask the questions, okay? Yeah. So because they just don't function like that. It's not that they lack anything. They need to think first, okay? So they won't be the people who are just gonna shoot questions there. However, if you're more on the introverted side, it's good to be somehow visible in the meeting, even if it is jumping in and saying, "Oh, I agree with that point," or "That's a good idea." Even if you say something small like this, you get some attention in the meeting, whereas otherwise you wouldn't. Now, the extroverts have it a little bit easier, and they go ahead and they say things. Sometimes it's a matter of confidence, and confidence, as we know, is internal. Okay, so it is about us believing that we can give some solutions to problems. However, one thing that gives a lot of relief in these situations is that you are not transparent. When you speak, the other person cannot read your mind, what you have in your mind. So as long as you are respectful and you feel that you have something important to say, I think most probably you'll do fine.
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Lieve, we had just now the topic of having a mentor and how important it is to have a mentor. You yourself are a mentor, and also you're very experienced in leadership and had a lot of different positions so far. So how important do you think it is to have a mentor to grow as a leader, especially as a woman?
I think it is very important to have a mentor, and I have had the luck to have been with a mentor for several years. And in my case, it was a male mentor. And let's say he learned me a lot, not only on leadership, also on business processes and on project management. And then I had the possibility to work together on different projects and to really, have a broad experience before then I really stepped up in leadership. So I was patient, took the time to learn and growing in confidence over the years. And with this, I was really lucky to have a very good mentor.
Speaking of confidence, we had a little conversation before this podcast. You said that you had a lot of experience in a very women-dominated industry. What was one thing that stood out to you in that time?
Yes, that sounds as a paradox, but it is not true that women are softer to each other or sweeter or more supportive or less demanding than their male colleagues and peers. So that's totally not true. And I think probably we should change this. But what I also learned is I think it is important how we raise our daughters, because it is in the early education that we can make the difference by teaching them and learning them and giving the example that they have the same qualities and the same chances than anyone else. And I think for me, the real difference starts there.
Very important point. Marianna, you just, our listeners don't see that, but you just raised your thumbs. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, no, I agree completely with Lieve. What she's saying is that there's been a lot of research on women actually digging the grave of other women, which is really counterintuitive. And sometimes we are our worst enemies. So it is very important to, as I said, this abundance mentality. There's enough to go around. And if we do help each other, then we're also sending the message there that there is strength there, strength in numbers. And I agree with Lieve again, how we raise our daughters, but also how we raise our sons. I have two sons, and I'm a big feminist, so I've been reading to them books since they were babies about strong female princesses or whatever, and they're doing all these things. So it is important that both genders embrace this and normalize this.
Yeah, very important. This is going to all of you, whoever wants to answer. What do you think we can do in our daily lives as a woman, working with women, to improve this stigma of having to fight one another, to having a conversation with each other, to work together, to just collaborate instead of being challenged?
Well, I think, again, it is an attitude of non-competition and of helping and sharing your knowledge. And I think I have seen that when women are in communities that perhaps don't even have men there, they are far more caring to each other and helpful. I don't know, maybe the men in the mix, they create something primal for us and we become more competitive with each other. But I think it is about, older women definitely giving opportunities and supporting younger women, showing them the way or empowering them in meetings or whatever it is. And peer women just sharing our problems with each other. We're good like this. And sharing at the same time solutions with each other or our experiences.
So when you have these conflicts between women, there has to be another third party who's listening to this conversation. There is someone supporting her to do that. Because if my boss or if my superior is not listening, if she or he takes a strategic decision without even listening to all these rumors or all these conversations, these conflicts will never happen. And we also talk about women empowerment, and as women, we wait for someone else to empower us. But why can't we have that empowerment within ourselves rather than waiting for someone else to empower us?
Yes, and if I can build on that, I think you need to look to your personality as well. So it is not important whether you're female or male, but it is the question, where can you add value to your team, to the process, to the project? And let's say the more diverse the teams are, the better it is. And it is not about competition, but about completion in my eyes. And I am a big believer of very, very diverse teams, where gender plays an element, but let's say there are many more examples of diversity of teams where you can think of.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a lot of we work on in Bold, right, Marianna, where we see, okay, what is my role in the team? What is my role as a leader? What is my role in leading myself? I guess that's all it's about.
Yes, and we do talk about diversity as well. And when I did do the first diversity piece, which was online during COVID, I could see that also the men of the group, they were so collaborative and they really wanted to understand, and they were in some ways blind to things. And then they realized, oh, okay, this is the experience that women are having. So sometimes it's a matter also of education and a whole shift from this competitive culture to a collaborative culture that is generally needed in organizations, I think.
Yeah, it becomes more and more transparent.
I think what is also extremely important for younger women in leadership roles is the key belief that it is possible, so that they have the self-confidence. And of course, you can ask yourself, where can you find your self-confidence? But let's say, I think we sometimes as women have programs in our heads which brings us down ourselves. And there, I think we should absolutely get rid of it because this is not constructive. This is not helping. And on the contrary, be a little bit more bold, outspoken, and probably a little overconfident. And you will see, if you are also able to be clear on what you're willing and what you are heading for in your career, that you will be successful. There's no reason why you should not be successful.
I started at the very bottom, and my superior, my senior, my manager was another woman. So she helped me to grow rather than pulling me down. She told me, okay, you do this, you do that, and speak up for yourself. No, if you want to say no, and then this is how we have to grow. I mean, I'm in board program right now. I think it's not just because of my performance, but also because of another woman who helped me to grow it within the business. So I think I could put myself as a good example because another woman helped me to grow within the business.
Yeah, it was a similar situation for me. Marianna, what do you think? What can companies do to empower this and to support women to grow into leading roles? For example, also when being a mom, you also said that you're a mother of two. What can companies do to support that?
Well, one of the things that I'm thinking generally is to have a female leadership program. I know many leaders, many female leaders think, oh, I don't want to have a special program. It already separates me. Yes, well, you're behind, so you need to have a special female program, okay? So they need to have a specific female leadership program. At the same time, I think that they should have programs in raising awareness in men, as I said. Okay, so many times it has been my experience in leadership workshops, whether I'm working with very senior leaders or junior, I see that the men don't realize what women go through. And when they do realize, they first of all are shocked, and second of all, they think twice. Except if men have daughters where they make the connection more easily, they don't see what women experience. So I think that raising awareness generally in both genders is very important. Now, the other thing is, I think what you've already described, but I'm going to make it clearer, is to give opportunities and exposure to women at an early stage in their career. Okay, because you become then valuable to the organization. If you are exposed to complicated or challenging projects, this is under your belt. It's very important. So opportunities, and that goes also for women returning from maternity. Training and opportunities to interesting and challenging projects is very important. Another thing that they could do is to offer to keep women in the loop when they are on maternity. In small pieces, and then the women can choose whether they want to be part of this or not. But being in the loop, again, whether it's a training or some update or some coffee or something, it keeps them updated, let's say. Give flexi hours. Mothers need that. Okay, there's a lot of emotions associated with motherhood. And many times in coaching, I see young women who become mothers and they're not there yet in their leadership, let's say, career. They haven't reached the super nice position, and they're struggling. And then sometimes they have to think twice whether they're going to return or go for a leadership position. Okay? There are many demands. So it is important for the organization to say, hey, you can have both. You don't have to choose. It's not an easy balance. Let's be realistic. It's not easy, but at least the organization could facilitate this transition.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah, thank you. That's very insightful. And I think it's a lot of important points mentioned there and lots of ideas where we can link to. I really don't want to cut this conversation off. It's been very, very interesting, but we have a little game at the end. So I will just quickly explain. So it's a game some of you might have seen or watched on social media, and it's called How Do You Professionally Say? So I give you an example. Imagine you are receiving a request which clearly shows that your previous emails haven't been considered.
Yeah.
And how do you professionally say, did you even read my email? So the answer could be reattaching my email to provide full clarity. So did you get the thrill of how the game works?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so let's start. I will just put it into the round and then you can just reply when something comes onto your mind. So how do you professionally say, do your job?
Accountability is one of our important values.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or we could also say, like, let's do the job. You know, we have this target. We need to achieve it as a group, and let's do the job together. Let's wing it. That's, and then they'll be like, oh, right, let's do it together, rather than telling him do the job right now.
Yeah, offering help is good. So the next one is, how do you professionally say, stay in your lane?
You can say, well, thank you very much for your feedback. I'll have a think.
It's quite a tricky one. Depending on the situation, we can say, whose responsibility do you think this should be? And then if the person says, okay, it's the responsibility of this person, all right, let's give it to them then.
Very good. Next one is, how do you professionally say, I'm not staying late to deal with this?
I have a personal appointment tonight, but I will quickly in the morning get the right attention to your request.
Nice. Very solution orientated.
Yeah. You could also say that, how urgent is this? Can I do it as the first thing in the morning tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. Very good. How do you professionally say, this is the last one from me, I don't want to talk to you right now?
I'd go something like, this is not a good time for me to talk. Could we meet this afternoon? Or
yeah,
I'll give you a ring when I'm done.
That's a good one. Mm-hmm.
Or shall we give a time out to this conversation?
Offering time out, that's a good one too. Yeah, nice. So that's it from my side, actually. It was just a quick game, but it's situations that we all know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I guess then we can wrap it up for today. Thank you very, very much for your time, for your participation. I think we've learned a lot.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It was really fun.
Thank you for the invitation. Really fun as well.